Okay, so welcome everyone to this edition of Candid Conversations with Entrepreneurs. I want to give you guys a little bit of the history before we get into the conversation. So, it actually started in July 2019 inside the Cruise Center. So, I was a graduate student at the University of Memphis and I was working on the magazine concept, and I wanted to have to add something that would be more of a personalized conversation because people can read, of course, but sometimes you want to listen. So the Candid Conversations was that supplement to the magazine. And Carolyn Michael Banks, who is the owner of a tour of possibility, she was the first guest. So she came over here to the Cruise Center, and at that time we had a content creation lab, and so that's where that video with Carolyn was recorded. So I was telling Whitney and Melissa that during the COVID period, we couldn't do any more in person because everything was shut down. So I started doing a few virtual conversations, and that kind of led me to actually interviewing people outside of Memphis. So I interviewed some people in Nashville, and that's how I met Danielle McGee Gibson with the Black Business Boom. I interviewed her. So we're here now, 2024, and in 2022, my son Eric, he started doing the in-person candid conversation. So we kicked it back off in 2022 at Mug and Coffee House. And so the concept was to support a Black-owned business and have conversation and coffee. But now we're going back to virtual. So we're just kind of doing back and forth, virtual and in person. So let me give you guys a little bit of background about Eric and then we'll turn it over to him. So Eric graduated from Middle Tennessee State University in 2017 with a bachelor's degree in business administration. He's been a full-time entrepreneur ever since he left home in 2012. Yeah, 2012. He started his own business, a t-shirt business, but he later transitioned into real estate. And so now he's a general contractor based in Nashville, Tennessee. So he's working on some projects up there. And so he is the moderator for Candid Conversation. So, Eric, take it away.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Um, so Candid Conversations is just that. It's a candid conversation with entrepreneurs. For the past 4 going on 5 years, we have been speaking with various entrepreneurs all from all over, hearing their stories, understanding their backgrounds. And the purpose of this is just ask questions for the listener, some present and some that may be listening to the recording, to provide some insight for them on how they can better uh, how their entrepreneur journey can be impacted by the wisdom and the lessons of entrepreneurs, good and bad, the good, bad, and the ugly, right? So we have two of our panelists, Miss Whitney Hardy. She is the director of the Cruise Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Memphis. And then we have Miss Melissa Nelms. She is the founder and owner of the Culture Collab. So I'll give you guys an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself, your ventures, and we can just go from there. So we'll start with you, Miss Whitney.
Well, thank you so much, Eric, for having me. And of course, Paula, I've been a huge fan of your work throughout the years of doing the conversations with entrepreneurs, but also highlighting those resources. I'm Whitney Hardy, as you mentioned, Eric, and I started quite a few businesses before joining the Cruise Center for Entrepreneurship this year in 2024 at the University of Memphis. So I have had startups that have been in the pet, food and beverage, as well as agriculture and logistics and technology companies that I have either been chief of staff, founder, or an investor in over the past few decades. That's really exciting to be in that seat, but I have also served as an executive with a Memphis-based nonprofit named Epicenter for quite a few years between some of that. So I've enjoyed being both the entrepreneur, but that person that's also advocating and building within the greater Memphis and really probably the national entrepreneurship scene.
Okay,
I'll hand it
great,
over to Melissa.
great,
I'm sorry
great.
if mine was a little bit short.
No, that's fine. That's perfect. That was perfect. That was perfect. Thank you, Melissa. Go ahead.
Okay, well, hello. I am Melissa Nelms. I'm the founder of the Culture Collab. Um, I've always had entrepreneurial spirit and endeavors, but I've always been a natural server. I love to kind of be behind the scenes, help people find their path. So never did I actually think that I would be starting a business, even though I always wanted to, but I never knew how someone with the non-tangible skills would be able to do that. I didn't know how to do hair and nails and cook and all of the things. When people start businesses, they know how to do a thing. And I just never had any of those skills. So I didn't know how I could be of service and of value and start a business without those skills. And so I started out as a virtual assistant pre-pandemic, and my role was to support Black-owned businesses in their behind-the-scenes work. We're always the ones who have the hardest reputation, right? Any other place, Walmart can mess up, you got to self-checkout and they get a pass. But with Black-owned businesses, we aren't extended that same grace. And so I started out behind the scenes helping them. I ended up working for a gentleman who worked in influencer marketing, and I found a love and a passion for that. And so that's what I do on a day-to-day now. I run an influencer marketing agency or talent agency, and I built my brand nationally, had clients in LA, New York, DC, Atlanta, all over the place. And so I decided to come back and look internally and started to sow into Memphis. As I've built a brand everywhere else, I wanted to kind of reel it back in and become local. And so now I have a passion for helping Black-owned businesses in the city of Memphis. And that's where I have been focusing my energy for the past few years. And I'll continue to do that as I continue to build a national brand.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, okay. So both of you guys kind of spoke about your background and what you've done prior to this moment. So since we're talking to either newer entrepreneurs or underrepresented entrepreneurs, most people tend to feel like they have to conform to something else to be accepted as an entrepreneur, depending on what space they're in. So, if you guys could speak to how your background plays a role in shaping your approach towards business, right? Just being two Black women, but just being an individual person, right? How have your individual experiences and your background shape your approach to business, and has that given you or have you used that as a competitive advantage?
I'll go first. So for me, I think I had to kind of shift my mindset in terms of employee and entrepreneur. Um, Naturally, as Black people, we code switch a lot. And that's always been something that we naturally do. And so in my entrepreneurial journey, I still wanted to conform and be super professional and let's code switch. But I learned that when you are the boss, quote unquote, right? The best way to do things is authentically. So I had to kind of shed that layer of being corporate, being very professional, because what makes my brand different is me, right? I'm the secret sauce behind it. So learning how to adjust, pivot, and be authentic in my role as a business owner really, really helped me a lot and really kind of helped me navigate the spaces. Again, with me being a natural server and being behind the scenes and having all of those skills with supporting Black-owned businesses behind the scenes, I was able to really utilize that and make those transferable skills to now build and learn how to run my own situation. And I'm learning something every day. So you'll never know everything, and you should never feel like I have to do this by myself. If you build a strong group of individuals around you and support around you, utilize your village and let them help you, but don't feel like you have to do it by yourself.
100%. I think that's perfect, Melissa. There are so many elements I think in there that I agree with, and I think that's a part about being a great entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, a resilient entrepreneur. For my own story, I think I always had a little bit of entrepreneurship in me. I come from multi generations of entrepreneurs, and I think back to even what Melissa mentioned. It starts off with you trying to find a place to fit, right? Two things: financial success and then workplace well-being, right? Are two things that typically are driving entrepreneurs to, or the employee to become the entrepreneur. And I think I always saw my identity within that place of where do I need to be to have the best well-being. So that was very early as a young Black girl in a predominantly white and suburban environment, on to whatever other designations and check boxes that I started applying to as you grow up. So LGBT, Black, Memphis is in the South, whatever categories, right? Everybody has their own set of check boxes, right? But you're looking for the community that is going to love and accept that check box. And typically we can't control that environment around us. So what I can control is my workplace when I decide to become an entrepreneur. So very early, I both recognized that was a bit of how my family was successful financially, but how my well-being was going to be the best was trying to create my own business, looking at those talents. So I went on to study accounting. I did hop around to a lot of different majors at the University of Tennessee because I am a very curious learner. I'm still very curious. Just like Melissa mentioned, you have to have curiosity to be successful in this space. So I looked at what do I need the most to be successful in business, and saw that accounting was one of the most difficult areas that Black women and Black entrepreneurs struggled with, this financial side of successfully building and sustaining a business. So I went with that. I absolutely hate accounting, by the way. It's not like it's a fun major for me. I learned and I left. That's the key, right? And then even now working at the University of Memphis, I tell students all the time, find the operational thing you'll need to successfully run your business. So I took accounting, went and did accounting for a little bit, but accounting introduced me to data analytics. It introduced me to profit and loss, margins, all these things that I needed to know before I ever went out there and actually launched my own business. So that's kind of how I took a little bit of my own personality pieces of it, and then also tried to go into creating my own business that that really just made a place for me, right? And that sense of community. And that's been how I've looked at all of either the different investments or the different companies that I've been involved with as a core.
Got it. Got it. No, those were great answers and feedback. I think that, as being an entrepreneur, you're kind of you're mixing a set of skills, right? And a lot of those skills are being learned on the fly. And
Yeah.
so when you're implementing information as you're learning it, right? I think that's entrepreneurship at its core, is getting information and then immediately putting that information into action, because you don't necessarily have a lot of time to sit on information if you're trying to execute it as an entrepreneur. And I think, the perspective that you guys both gave was incredible. Now, Whitney, for you to major in accounting is just a whole nother level of a salute I'll give you, because accounting was just not my friend. I mean, but I did learn, I did take the classes, and I understand how important it was, just even to understand the language, right? You don't have to be an accountant, but you need to be able to recognize what people are saying when they're talking to you, because that's the language of money right now. um I do want to jump into another question. So, by you guys both having a robust background in entrepreneurship, and I think we can all agree that, entrepreneurship is something that we have to learn as we go. But what role has mentorship played in your journey? If you've had mentors, if you didn't, are you mentoring other individuals now to kind of go forward? What role has that played in either of your journeys?
I think mentorship is very important, right? In both sides. I definitely have been mentored really well, probably again from non-traditional ways, right? You see resiliency in so many different versions. I could say my grandmother mentored me, right? How do you remain a resilient Black woman in the face of adversity? Mentored by different people in different industries across the board.